Hello and welcome to the special replay of Your Life Abroad seminar hosted by Melanie from Life Abroad Coaching, an interview with your American in Portugal.
Hi everyone, this is Melanie from Life Abroad Coaching and Consulting, and today I'm here with Veronica from American in Portugal and travelingqueen.com. Hi Veronica.
Hi, how are you, Melanie? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm great. Happy to have you. So, folks, Veronica is an American expat living in Portugal going on 6 years now. And she helps people to learn about moving to Portugal through YouTube videos, print and internet articles. And she also offers a 1-hour consultation to help direct you to the best resources and real estate agents who are vetted and know how to work with expats in real estate. There's lots of pitfalls attached to buying in Portugal. And Veronica's here to help you and avoid any large financial mistakes. So we're going to talk about a bunch about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Well,
okay.
The real estate mistakes aren't fabulous, but the conversation.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, why don't you start out and just tell the audience about where you moved from originally and when and where you live in Portugal.
Yeah, so I moved in 2017 and I grew up in Southern California. Southern California girl. I actually grew up in Disneyland. I used to dance in the Disneyland parade. So I always joke, I grew up in Disneyland. So it was a lovely way to grow up. And I grew up with a great climate, community, beaches. And so that's, of course, why the Algarve kind of has me in its arms, really. I mean, when I was looking at the different places to live, we looked all over Portugal. I was married at the time. My husband has passed away, but we went and researched throughout all of Portugal, like what would be the best. Porto, Lisbon, and Lisbon's very similar to San Francisco. What else did I know from San Francisco, right? So, when you look at the differences in Portugal and you look at the variety of climates, it's very, very similar to California. And so in a lot of my videos, that's how I explain where would you live in Portugal. Some people come over without any idea of where they want to live. And they're like, oh, I'll just go to Lisbon. And then they go, wow, it's really dense and it's cooler. And then they'll come to the Algarve and go, wow, this is more, the beaches. Whereas Porto's got that lovely, historic, but much colder, wetter, damper weather. So depending on where you're from, there's many choices for you, but experiencing it is definitely the best way. And it's why I chose the Algarve and the East Algarve. I joke the Far East because I look at Spain. Looking at Spain right now out my window. I'm on the river and the lights. I can see the lights of Spain. And it's why I chose this area, because it's closest to what I grew up with and that I'm happy with.
So you're actually right on the edge of Spain over there. And so did you consider any other countries, or did you and your husband, were you really devoted to moving to Portugal right from the beginning?
So I'm very fortunate in that my father was German, and so that passed on to me that I have German citizenship as well as American citizenship. So I have kind of two phenomenal passports. So the world really was open to me. I mean, Germany is like one of the countries with 144, visa type options. The EU was then open to me. And when we looked around at other countries, we did consider some of the South American countries, Belize, Ecuador, something like a lot of California expats were going down to, Mexico, either the Baja Coast or even Costa Rica, because they wanted the surf and the waves. But we found that wasn't a fit for us because we wanted the history and we wanted the history of Europe. And when you do look at the entire European continent, you look at Portugal and how far down it is. So when you look at the latitude, you'll look, and the last place I lived was San Luis Obispo County, which is the same latitude as this is here. So when you look at that as far as other countries and where that lines up, some are actually in the ocean, right? And then some other areas are just areas that, even though they're same latitude, they're much cooler. So you're talking areas, it could be Switzerland or Germany, Italy. And this was the best fit because of the beaches. And if you were to look at Portugal and you look at California, it's so similar. You've got this gorgeous coastline all the way down that just gives so many different options of beaches, and the climate is very similar.
And so was it cost or something else that drove you to leave California in the first place and move to Portugal?
So I think, as far as Americans go, and probably Canadians as well, I mean, Europe is Europe, right? That's like the dream. You want to be able to go there and travel there, but to live there is the ultimate dream. And so then when you're looking at cost, which one is the most economical? Health insurance, the most welcoming. I mean, Portugal definitely was the most welcoming. For me, not that difficult being, I ended up getting my German passport. So with an EU passport, you could live anywhere in the EU. But when you looked at, again, cost, safety, language, affordability, those things are large on the radar, and Portugal kind of encompasses all those things. I mean, I'm looking at Spain across the river, but in Spain, they don't speak English. Like, they're not taught it in schools. In Portugal, they are, and they've had such a great relationship with Great Britain for through many wars. They've kept that relationship, and the British know this is like their secret hidden place in the sun. So they fly down, and a lot of them have made their homes here. So it's made English a very important language. And so when you look at the English proficiency, there's actually a list, and we can link to that, where you can look at it around the world. And Portugal usually ranks 5 to 7 as far as proficiency. Not that we need to come to a country and say, oh, hey, speak English for us, but where Spanish is a language which isn't too difficult, Portuguese is a difficult language. So to be in a place where you can land right away and be able to speak as you're learning the language, speak English as you're learning their language. Safety, again, it ranks on the tops of the charts every year for the Global Peace Index and safety. And I mean, you start looking at all these components and you go, wow, this is it. Our airport here in Faro is such a great airport. It's economical, and it flies everywhere around Europe, because as the warm, sunny kind of vacation spot, the Algarve here in Europe, the planes are coming in. So right now, obviously, all these countries that are frozen, because it's winter right now as we're recording, they're coming here to the Algarve. Well, guess what? The planes go back to take them back. So this, my friends, is my sweet airport, the Faro Airport. It's just the right size. It has just enough gates and just enough airlines. Big enough, but not too big. And I park right there. Look at that. My car is parked right there. And you can book that parking in advance for like 10 bucks a day or something. Wasn't too much. And then this is right where you arrive. Like, you can't get much closer than that. Beautiful sunny day, as usual. Middle of December. It's sunny. Okay, there's a little bit of wind, but you kind of need it when you're sitting in the sunshine. Outdoor cafe to wait for your friends while they arrive, or 4 or 5 cafes inside. Just perfect size airport. You can fly around Europe so easily. And then the Seville airport's an hour and a half away. So, I mean, you've got 2 great airports. Yeah, we can go to Lisbon, which is like an LAX, right? It's a much larger airport. So you've got the international hubs there. But even going home, I tend to prefer to go from Faro, our local airport, hop up to Great Britain, and then go direct from like Heathrow to LA versus.
So lots of options, it sounds like, for traveling in and out. And you had a great, easy immigration path with your dual citizenship. Most listeners probably don't. So is there anything that you want to share about if folks are considering different visa options from the US or Canada? What can you share about what should they know, or who should they know maybe?
The path that you take to being able to live in Europe is a visa in a country. And I think, it's really interesting. Just a week ago, some lady recognized me from my videos and said, oh, hey, we just moved here. I said, oh, did you rent a place so you can get a visa? Which The traditional visa has been the D7, passive income for retirees visa, but you need a 12-month rental contract to do that. So I said, oh, did you, get a contract or buy here so you could live here? And they said, no, we just came over. So I don't think they realize that you are able to get a tourism visa here anywhere within the Schengen zone, which you'll have to Google the Schengen zone. It's a lot of countries in the EU, but some like Ireland are not considered in the Schengen zone. But basically, you can only be here for 90 out of 180 days, and you got to get out. And people don't realize they're on a visa because when they go through the passport control, they just stamp it. Okay. So without knowing that, that's your first visa that you get is your tourism visa when you just come to visit. Well, you need to be out of the zone, the Schengen zone, EU zone pretty much, except those countries aren't part of the Schengen, within 3 months. Then the next visa that you would get if you haven't come here to visit would be a visa to live here, to become a resident. So, with having all these visa options, I have friends who are experts. If you've ever seen Expats Everywhere, they're a great couple. They made a specialized video and they keep it updated with workbooks and whatnot. And I always refer to them because this is what they do all day, every day. And then they're available to those people for questions. So
fantastic. I think what you highlight is that it's really important to know what's happening right now when you're ready to make that move. So thanks for sharing about that. And do you want to tell us some details about housing in Portugal? I know that real estate is your background and focus. So why don't you tell us a little bit about housing?
So I used to actually train real estate agents in California. The company that I worked with, we, partnered with some of the largest real estate companies. I'm part of the Realology umbrella, Caldwell Banker, Century 21. All of these companies are actually owned by one company. So you got a pro tip. It's called Realology, and they own a lot of these franchises. And I would go around and train their agents, train their new agents. And a lot of the things that we talk about, I'm kind of training agents here. But the most important thing to know, without just saying, okay, I've got a background and then I've got a background of training. I've had a California real estate license since 2007, 2008, 2008. I just did my CEs to keep it up because it's difficult to get. Here, they don't require any licensing. So I could be you today and you could come to an agency and say, oh, I want to be an agent. And I go, okay, here. They sign you up. So the broker number, which is the AMI number, just flows to you. So each agent doesn't have their own separate licensing number. So you have people who are completely new to it and you don't know what kind of training that they've received. So unfortunately, with that comes a level of, I don't want to be negative, but the best way to say it is it's up to each broker on how they're going to train or not train their agents. So I think the standing that we have in the States and the requirement to get a license as well as to become a realtor, which is a separate designation with a higher standard in ethics, it's completely different. There's no MLS association that we're used to, a multiple listing association. The closest thing that they have is one kind of like Zillow that just scrapes data off of, a lot of the sites that people can list properties on available to the public. So there's no MLS, there's no watchdog over it. People, without being super negative, they're not always trained. And they don't have the basic things we're used to. Okay. So what we're used to is a home inspection where someone's checking things out. Title, so you make sure there's we say clouds on title, chain of title is clear, meaning that you don't have other descendants who can come in and claim that property. Portugal is very similar to the French inheritance law, where if a parent passes away, all children, all descendants and ascendants have equal rights to the property. And so without a clear chain of title, you could think that you're buying a property, but someone else should be on title, liens against title. So in order to check those out, there's not an agency or a registration company who does all of that for you, like we're used to with the county registrar, right? So none of these things exist. Basically, you have what would be a property finder pairing you together without actual data stating how much something is worth, finding a property and saying, here you go. And while some people think it's nice to have one agent that represents the buyer and the seller, you're giving up all rights for somebody to protect you when that happens. It's called dual agency. It's illegal in a lot of states. It's highly regulated in other states, meaning you can't represent the buyer and the seller, because in doing so, would you go to court and have the same lawyer for both sides? Plus, you know what I mean? Then you're the prosecution defense, they know everything. And then maybe even the judge is part of that same unit. So they can represent the seller and the buyer. You have no agency. When you look at basic tort law, you're talking a contract that is unilateral versus bilateral, meaning if you give up your right to a buyer's agent by going into an agency and letting them represent you as a buyer and a seller, you have a unilateral contract. They owe allegiance to the seller, and that's it. But if you have your own buyer's agent and you have different representation, a different company and a seller's agent, that's now a bilateral contract. It goes two ways. Your agent is legally responsible to represent you in a fiduciary manner, right? If you have a unilateral, they just have to give like what is normally called best efforts, which is pretty much nothing. So you're not going to save any money by doing that. And they try to encourage you to do that, unfortunately. So I think that's another thing that is just tough. So what we've done is create a streamlined experience that gives you your own outside counsel to check all these documents, because there's nobody to do it for you. We hire a surveyor to check the property, the thermography, to go to the county and make sure that there's no permits that haven't been any permitting issues at all. Like maybe there's been changes in the house and there's no permit. To go to the finances and make sure there's no liens against title, because they still have mechanics liens. If you hired somebody to do work on your house and didn't pay them, they can still put a lien against your property. So this can flow to the next person quite easily if it's not thoroughly vetted. And unfortunately, there's also fraud. So what we've done is come in and put together a process that is very similar to what we're used to in America, and I think Canada as well as California, which is a pretty litigious state. So there's a lot of safeguards. And sorry, that's a long answer, but there's a lot of pitfalls. And so I've made videos explaining how to go around them, getting that surveyor to make sure everything is as it should be, and then to give you the result. And as long as, because there's no formal disclosure process here, as long as things are disclosed, then you can make the right decision. You can say, yes, I'm willing to buy that property with this flaw for this amount of money, or I'm not, I'll discount it and, offer 20, 30, 40,000 or whatnot with that flaw. But to not have the disclosure at all is just, unfortunately, something that happens quite a bit here.
So I heard you say that you have moved around in Portugal several times over the years that you've been there. And would you recommend that people actually rent first in certain areas when they come? Or what do you think about people just buying outright who aren't yet familiar with Portugal?
So I go back and forth with that. I think it's really important to come and do a reconnaissance trip. Okay. That wasn't an option during COVID. So people were doing it with having done a basic sightseeing trip. And some people just wanted to get out. They wanted to escape. There was some conflict in America. And then in this last bubble where property prices spiked, they just wanted to sell as soon as possible and get over here. I wouldn't recommend buying, selling, because there's costs associated with it and taxation. You do get a break if you're trading one primary residence and selling that for another, as far as with the taxes. But here's the pitfall. I would generally say you want to come and rent, check out everything, see where you want to be. There are very few 12-month rentals, and you need the 12-month rental in order to fulfill your D7 or visa requirement. So how do you get around that? People in all of these beautiful areas that you want to live, vacation type areas that you love to live. I mean, I'm on the river and the beach, and unfortunately, they're not going to do a contract, or there's very few that'll do a contract for a year, because in the summer they can rent out their place weekly for what they could rent it out a month. So we're trying to change that and help people, but I've had people working hard on it here, and I mean, we'll come up with like 1 or 2 rentals. They're just, I have a client I'm trying to help right now. They have a budget of $3,500 a month, and we cannot find them a place to rent.
So it's possible, particularly if folks want to live in the Algarve or somewhere else that's very popular, that they might initially, in order to secure that D7, need to be open to living somewhere else for a while in order to get in and settle, and then later find something in their ideal area.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, at this point, I tell anyone, if you can find any 12-month rental, just take it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's sad. It's not. And then it's so funny. I've had people email me, okay, can you send me 4 or 5 different agents? And this is what we want. We might consider this. And then they've got this lowball budget. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to laugh, but like, you don't know what you're asking. You're like, I really like that Ferrari, but I also like a Lamborghini. And yeah, I only have 20,000. And if you could all sit here and give me tons of your time and help me decide which one is best for me, you're like, what do you do?
So what are current property prices, and what would somebody get for their American dollar in your area or other areas, if you know?
Yeah, it's really different from side to side. So in the Algarve specifically, most of the Europeans will fly into the Faro airport, which is just right kind of in the center of the Algarve. So if you think of the Algarve, if you haven't heard of the Algarve, that's kind of the most southern portion. And it's, you know, it goes from ocean to river, you know, looking at the river to Spain. So the Guadiana River in Spain, to the west is the Atlantic Ocean. So it's that bottom portion. And those are like the fabulous beaches, right? The big, you know, fabulous beaches. And it's also the area that gets the most sun. It's warm. So it draws a lot of visitors. So people fly in, they head west. Oh, I'm married. They head west. They head west. And that's where you've got a lot of density. You've got a lot of the party, or a lot of the vacation rentals, a lot of dense population. So that's going to be very expensive. And when you head to the east, where I'm at, you get a lot more value for your money. So the big city most people know about is Tavira. But if you head all the way to the west, I can get a better deal in my kind of corner of the world. It's one of the reasons I chose it also for a few other things. But this area here, you get so much more bang for your buck, and you're literally like on the river, on the ocean. There's a ferry that goes to Spain in 9 minutes for a couple euros. Beautiful beaches that are untouched because you've got preserves, so they can't be built upon. It's just like this little corner of paradise people don't know about. So when we're talking value for money, this is at value for money. I mean, you can absolutely get something 200, 250. A lot of people want river views, but the river frontage is quite small. So that's going to increase the prices, right? Supply and demand. The best building in town, we just sold a unit that was 600,000, but that was all glass in every room and the corner with a huge balcony with river and ocean views. So if you think of that,
an apartment you're talking about.
That's an apartment. Yeah. And most of the cities, you're going to have more apartments. And I think I get asked that a lot too. Like, they love the historical center. They love the square. They love the walkability. There's no cars in the square. They love the shopping districts. We're all within, 5 or 6 blocks from the city center. So we can walk in. If we have something to drink, we walk home. There's no worrying about parking. It's just such a great kind of heart and hub of the city. And if you do drink, you don't have to all figure out, hey, who's going to drive home? So it's really great. But with that cute city square, you're not going to have freestanding houses. I mean, that's going to be a big housing development. And those you'll find more on the west. But to have that house away from the beach without views and just another housing development, they can be $1 to $5 million. So you're talking Valdelobo, Quinta del Lago, the kind of what we say the Golden Triangle, and all the way in Luz and Praia de Luz. They're so expensive. And for most Americans, we're not going to leave America if we have the perfect little housing development, just to come to another country, the housing development. We want authentic squares. So we're willing to give up, the big house on an acre, half acre in a development to have this, really quaint and local Portuguese community. And so that's where the differences lie that I see, and the cost, and why you get such a better deal here on the East than where these big known expat centers are. So again, the British coming in, they have beautiful historic towns. They have all these cute little villages and pubs and places they can walk to, but they don't have a sunshine. So they're happy to fly in and be in a housing development. It's new to them, right? Versus we have housing developments. We don't have cute squares. We don't have the history. So it's a complete difference. So, and there's a lot more of them coming in. I think we've got 7,000 Americans right now, as far as, the amount of people who are here on visas that log into our SEF system. So, you know what I mean? When you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of British, I mean, the numbers are huge. And now the numbers will increase as far as what we'll be able to see because of Brexit. Now they've got to register. A lot of them lived here and just didn't register, right? And of course, we have Dutch and Italians. We have all the Europeans that come here because of the NHR status. That's very good for them. They save quite a bit on their money, plus their money goes further. So that's like a double hit for them. So it's a big group of expats, but again, they like these housing developments, and that shoots up the pricing. Like, again, the quaint little towns, no big deal for them. It is for us.
And if folks are considering an apartment there, do they have condos, or here in Canada, we call them stratas? Like, is that the kind of a fee structure that folks would need to expect to pay if they did move to an apartment there?
Okay, so what we have that would be similar to the Americans is condos. I'm in a condo. We say apartment, but it's a condo, so it'd be your strata, right? So you have homeowners association, you have homeowners association dues. They're nothing like they were in America, where we could have up to $800 a month in association dues for like pool, landscaping, all those kind of community things. Here, mine's 40 euros a month. And it's more than a lot of other places because we have elevators. So they have to pay on the elevators. And when you're talking common areas, the rooftop terrace, things that will be cleaned. But I mean, I think for most people moving, I should say North America, like 40 a month, nothing, right? My property taxes are $400 a year. I was paying $1,000 a month in California when I lived in LA. So $1,000 a month versus $400 a year. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, lots of great housing tips. You're talking about all the differences in terms of buying real estate. And, I think you mentioned that sometimes people see those in negative context, but when we're moving to other countries, we have to understand that things have evolved in different ways, and that we can't come and expect it to be the way that we want, or that our way is better, or anything like that. But what are some other cultural differences that people might find in Portugal? And, what's the attitude you suggest people bring with them?
It's a great. Let me preface this by saying the Portuguese people are so kind, friendly, family oriented, and patient. So you need to pack your patience. Pack your patience, because things just take longer, which is so wonderful. For those of us that are retired, maybe if you're not retired, you're like, I only have so much time, I'm working, or, kids or whatnot. But for the retirees, we're so used to go, right? You're, leaving 2 hours early in Los Angeles to get through traffic. It's 5 lanes wide. You're like, I just got to go. Every minute is maximized. Here, the people are just more relaxed. It's a land, farmers and fishermen. It's not a big businessy type place. So that can frustrate us. The amount of time it can take to do something. People can be late. They don't like to give bad news. So if you have maybe a contractor scheduled and he doesn't show up, he doesn't want to give the bad news, he can't come. And so I think some of that is setting your expectations correctly, as well as setting your priorities. So what's really important today, I need to book, the air conditioning man, or, whatever contractor you need. And then setting your expectations with that contractor and just saying, hey, I know, that sometimes something else might come up. Please, it's more important for me to know if you're not going to show up and have me sit around all day long waiting than to tell me you can't show up. So I think it's just setting an expectation. It's okay to tell me, I mean, you don't want to tell them don't show up, but to say, I really need to know, are you okay with that? And set those expectations at the beginning. And then always ask more questions. I find a good question to ask no matter where you go is there something I'm missing? Because they tend not to give extraneous data and that also is a personality type, right? If you ask me something, I'm going to say, if you ask me what time it is, I'll give you the time, but then I'll say, oh, and here's my watch and here's where you can buy it. They're not going to do that. And culturally, we kind of are used to sharing information and sharing data. So I've heard a lot of people go, oh, I was at the cell phone store and I came out and they didn't tell me this, this, and this. I'm like, well, did you ask it? No. Okay, then you didn't ask it. But you can always leave that question. Is there anything else I should know? Is there anything I missed? Because if you don't know what to ask, you don't know what to ask.
Sure. That's great advice.
Patience, I think, is the biggest. Patience. And don't set expectations that are unrealistic. If you're not a patient person, if you're not happy to be part of the culture and embrace the culture and love it for what it is, moving to another country is not for everybody. I know people don't want to hear that. They think it's all sunshine and rainbows. But if you don't have the proper attitude and again, pack that patience, any place in Europe may not be right for you, actually. Think of the DMV, that's the way a lot of services are here too. It's a government organization. It's going to take longer.
Mm-hmm. So pack the patience.
I like that. Pack the patience. I should patience. Pack your patience.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the ways that you personally can help folks decide if Portugal's the right fit for them, or ways that you help new arrivals adjust? I know you're talking about offering a real estate service. Are there other things that you offer that will help folks decide?
Yeah, and so I have my website, right? And I have a lot of YouTube videos, and I would say watch the videos, and I give extraneous data. That's just me. If you like a bullet point person, that's not me. But if you don't have time to watch the videos, you definitely don't have time to move here, because guess what? On the back end, your lack of preparation is going to cause you a lot more time than watching that video, even if I give too many details. That detail may actually help you in the future. So I think you need to really review those videos. I give a lot of basic knowledge. If you want a step more, that's when I do offer the consultations. And the consultations, you can, talk to me one-on-one. We go through specifically what your needs are. I have a questionnaire. I have a resource sheet. I have, I think you're going to pop up a link that then links you to my MailChimp, which immediately has an autoresponder, which gives you my contact sheet. And then with that, if I do a newsletter, which I don't have time to spam, I try to do once a month, but you're not going to get spam from me. You're just not. If I'm on it, I'll do one a month. But again, I'm supposed to be retired, and now all this real estate stuff came up, right? So when you see a need and you can fix that need, it kind of makes your retirement charity project mixed in with, something kind of fun to do, which was really great during COVID, right? You could really connect with people around the world. So I also have a questionnaire, and you can use this tool to go through and kind of organize your brain and make sure it's right for you and you're thinking of everything. Or you can use that questionnaire as a way to reach out to me and say, hey, can we talk for an hour? I've looked through your videos and here's questions I have that won't work. And then I can pair you with the agent that's right for you. So we can help you have a vetted agent that I've trained to do things in a way that will protect you. And, the best thing that we can actually come up with here in Portugal, attorneys, I have a great attorney that I use. I have a great financial guy I use, and I don't get referral fees like from the attorney and the finance guy. I don't get referral fees for that. So I just send people to them because I think they're fabulous and they give good advice. And I do think before you move here, you really should be talking to a financial person to get things in line back home. Global capital gains could affect your global income, and you could get taxed in Portugal when you're thinking you might not under the NHR scheme, which is the non-habitual residency scheme. And again, we could go on for hours and hours about all these little points and tips. But the questionnaire, I think, is really important because it does make you think, are you bringing animals? Do you want to live by the beach, or how do you picture your life? Do you see yourself walking or driving? Are you going to buy a car? Do you need public? I mean, all these things you need to think of that will narrow down the cities that will be right for you. You know, people have sent me stuff saying, oh, I have allergies. I can't deal with mold. I have, I can't have things too cold. I need things cold. I need things wet. And that will help the people that want to help you, as well as organize your own thoughts. Because you start writing down the questions, you might go, oh my gosh, this is great for me. Or maybe this isn't great for me.
Great. Well, as you said, I'm going to drop the link to your MailChimp that will connect people to a free resource sheet and to your private videos. I'm going to put that in the chat for folks.
Oh yeah, I have private videos too, that it's only for my people that subscribe, because some of them I will get a little more real, and I don't want that out publicly, because they're like, oh, who's that snarky girl? She comes off as so pretty and fun and nice and sweet. And you see her in this other one at the end of the day going, I'm pulling out my hair, I have no makeup on, my filter's not on. What happened? You're a troll now. So those ones I just put for, private users, because they're serious at that point. If you join my MailChimp, you're probably pretty serious about moving here. So I can give the real 411 and not anger all of Portugal, because I'm going to say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. The pitfalls.
Okay, well, for authentic Veronica, you can check out that link in the chat. And we're actually out of time. So you're there on your beautiful rooftop, and I want you to enjoy your evening. And just thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you so much. And welcome to Portugal.
Thank you. Take care.
I hope you've learned something with the video. If you want to learn about buying in Portugal, watch this video. It's worth the time. If you don't have time to watch a video, you might not have time to move to Portugal. If you like these videos, hit like, hit subscribe. In the notes below, go ahead and subscribe to my MailChimp. And also, if you want to support the channel, click the little link in the notes. It says buy me a coffee. Thanks, cheers, and we'll see you next time.